Good to be with you all. It is Tuesday, the 24th of February, and I'm looking forward to the questions that we'll get live and the ones that we already have. So let's start with those. Our first writer is a woman from the eastern part of the United States. She says, "My ex-boyfriend and I broke up almost 5 years ago, long before I married my husband, which was about a year ago. Throughout that old relationship, my boyfriend was almost always more serious and committed toward me than I was toward him. At least twice I broke up with him, but he insisted on getting back together. But eventually we did break up, and I didn't regret it. After that, I really enjoyed dating other people, although now I realize that for me, dating was mostly a huge imitation love trading floor." Nice picture. "I didn't mind that because I wasn't really looking for more than the brief imitation love highs, and I didn't care when the brief encounters came to their natural end, mostly without any hurt feelings. And, early in life, when people are, in their early 20s, a lot of people really don't mind having just imitation love." You continue, "However, my ex-boyfriend was a pretty committed kind of guy, even thinking about marriage, so the end of our relationship hurt him deeply. After the breakup, we got together once or twice, and he has occasionally emailed or called, although our goal was not to renew our relationship. I care about him as a person, but even if I wasn't married now, I would really no longer care to hear from him as a friend. I've hardly ever responded to his post-breakup emails, and when I have, I've ended on a note that had what I thought was some finality. And I've only returned his calls, never initiated them. And now, I think over the past 6 months or so, I simply stopped returning his voicemails, and I delete his emails without reading them." So notice that, even though you broke up with him 5 years ago, you've been corresponding with this guy by email and responding to his calls for 5 years and continued to communicate with him even during your marriage. So, this has been some long-lasting relationship. "So I feel like I've been telling him with my actions for a while now that I'm not interested in communicating with him. And yet, today I saw that I received yet another email from him, which I again deleted without reading it, but I could see from the preview screen that it started out with, 'Hey love, just wanted to share,' something like that. I'm beginning to wonder if I need to be more direct about my wish to cease contact, but I'm not sure what the best way is to do this without being unloving and without him feeling rejected. Maybe he needs some kind of closure, or maybe I'm still practicing a getting and protecting behavior in all this mess that I'm too immersed in to recognize. I suspect that I may feel a bit of guilt as well for possibly leading him on in our relationship. After the breakup, he hinted that I had done this, and he might be right. So what's going on, and what would a loving person do here?" So you do need to see what you've been doing. Here you broke up with this guy, and yet you continue to communicate with this guy. And you say, "I think that with some finality, I've been communicating with him that I'm done." But, obviously it's not with some finality, because you keep answering his phone calls. You keep talking to him. You keep answering his emails for 5 years. And you really get deep inside that this guy still has some romantic interest in you. Like you said, you feel some guilt here. You feel some need to continue the relationship. He's communicating with you, "Hey, love, You're not just friends. And I can sense from your communication here that you know that he wants more than just friendship with you, and yet you keep answering him. And you want to be nice to him. You're afraid to just say no. And you can even sense that there's some getting and protecting behavior going on here. And there is. And what is it? You're protecting yourself by not telling him no because you're looking for some degree of safety. You're afraid to have people withdraw their affection from you. So what are you doing? What's the getting and protecting behavior? You're lying. You're not simply telling him with absolute utter finality, I'm done, and then explaining to him why you're done, what went on in your relationship, and saying, I will never respond to another communication again. Like you said, some finality. You can't put the words some and final in the same phrase. I mean, it's either final or it isn't. It's like saying I kind of fell off the cliff, or I was sort of pregnant, or it's final or it ain't. So, why is this guy coming back to you? Well, obviously he's, lonely, and you keep leading him on that there's some possibility of a relationship. So, what are you going to do here? Well, the kind thing to do would be to call him. You've been leading him on all this time, and so, now really you kind of need to end it, by actually communicating with him. And you really need to tell your husband that you're doing this. I mean, now you're married, so you need to tell your partner what's going on, and you need to tell your partner what you've been doing all these years. You need to say, look, I screwed up. I've been leading this guy on. It's been stupid on my part. I haven't wanted to hurt his feelings. I haven't wanted to lose. I'm afraid of losing anybody's approval, and so here's what I've been doing. It's been stupid. I've been wrong. Don't sugarcoat it. And, this guy, this ex-boyfriend, is almost certainly dying to know several things, at least two. Almost anybody in a breakup wants to know what went wrong and was it his fault. And so you need to tell him, look, this wasn't about you. That you need to explain to him that you were too immature to be in an unconditionally loving relationship with him. And then explain to him what you have learned about unconditional love. The other thing he wants to know is, and just explain this to him briefly. I mean, we're talking in, 3 or 4 sentences. Don't read him the book. And then he wants to know, is there any possibility that the two of you are going to have any kind of relationship? And then you need to explain to him clearly, no, there isn't. You're now in a committed relationship, a marriage with your husband, and that's what you're committed to. Then your last step is going to be, you're going to say that this will be your absolute last communication to him. And that part isn't about him. It's not that you don't like him, but you are in a marriage. And so it would simply be a distraction to you, a distraction to your husband for you to be having a communication with an old boyfriend. It's just not conducive to conducting an exclusive relationship with a husband. And it's not fair to him. So you've moved on, you now have an absolutely undivided loyalty, and you might say to him, if he wants to understand the principles that you just talked about briefly, he could read Real Love if he wants to, but that's up to him. But that's it. You don't say that with any irritation, but this will be your last contact. If he then leaves a voicemail or an email or an anything, you don't respond with, well, did you not understand me? No, you just don't respond. So, you've been goofing around here with this guy for too long, and it's been, to protect you. And this would be a great way to end it. But please share this with your husband, or you'd be dishonest again. Here's a woman who says, my husband continually, and by the way, if you have any questions, we're going to mostly get to questions that have been sent in ahead of time, but if you have any, please send them to me at greg@reallove.com. That's Greg at reallove.com. And we're going to be going out to Phoenix the last week of March, and there's going to be something going out in the newsletter today to explain the date that we're going to be doing a marriage seminar. And it's also going to contain some information about a really small marriage retreat that Donna and I are going to be doing together, which is going to be a hoot, with a tiny number, just 3 couples up in the mountains of northern Arizona, where we're going to spend a weekend with just 3 couples working on issues with them. So if you want to ever have an opportunity to do some intense, by intense I don't mean serious, although it could be, but intense by I mean do a lot of work one-on-one with your partner, this would be a good opportunity to do that. This writer says, my husband continually feels I betrayed him because I failed to get a job in 6 months as I agreed to do when I moved from where I lived to Indiana to be with him. He was very supportive of me finding a new career in an entirely new field. But then it became apparent that I couldn't find a job in that field, so I looked elsewhere. And it took 7.5 months instead of 6 months, a lot longer than I thought. Where we lived was rural, and there were not many jobs to choose from. I did have one opportunity to get work for higher pay, but I would have had to lie to them and tell them that I was staying long term, but I couldn't lie because I knew we were moving. Then we moved to Boston, and again I tried to find work. Within a month of moving, he announced that he was unhappy in his career and didn't want to pursue it. So again, we prepared to move. But again, he blamed me for not immediately finding a great job to support him. It's exhausting now to keep being accused of betraying him for not doing exactly what I said I'd do. Now, anytime a money issue comes up, he reminds me of how I failed to keep my agreement and get a job. He doesn't understand how hard it is to find great jobs in temporary situations, and that I did my best both in Indiana and again in Boston. I feel angry that he set me up for failure and now blames me. So whenever he has to face year-end taxes, this issue comes up. He keeps saying everything would be fine if only you had gotten the job in Indiana and if only you had gotten the job in Boston. And I'm sick of it. He got an inheritance from one of his parents, and I know it bothers him that he's now spent it all. His anger is so powerful that I get afraid and really have a hard time not reacting to it. I don't know how to give him what he needs. It seems that he really believes that money is the answer, and if I would just have done what he said, then everything would be fine. So everything's my fault. I'm now working in a home business and still not making enough money in his eyes. He doesn't realize that the more he pushes with all of his anger, the more difficult it is to work and create what we need. I feel victimized and hurt. I feel in my gut that the issue is not about the job or money, but I don't know how to get to the real issue and give him the love he desperately needs. Sometimes I feel that he really does not want me to succeed in my passions and aspirations, that my success would somehow threaten him. It seems at times that we're just in competition with each other, or rather that he needs to be in competition with me. Somehow my success would be threatening or show that he's not succeeding. So, this is something that the two of you need to talk about. And before talking to him about what he's doing, it's almost always helpful to set an environment that is safer for him, which involves you talking about you. In other words, telling the truth about yourself. So, in Indiana, sure, you had a hard time getting a job within the 6 months that you said that you'd get a job. And it's always helpful to do a rigorous self-examination. So you need to look at, did you do everything that you could do? I realize it was hard to get a job there, but, just look at possible mistakes that you made. I could have done this differently. I could have done that differently to find a job within the 6.5 months. What could you have done differently in Boston? What fears did you deal with, inadequately, and so on? And then tell him, say, look, in Indiana, I could have done this differently. I could have done that. I could have done this more effectively. In Boston, I could have done this faster or better. And then describe how you could have been more supportive of him in his fears and so on in Indiana and Boston and so on. And then describe how you want to be more loving and supportive in the future. But then, after you've described all of your flaws and mistakes and fears and so on around the job and all of that stuff, then say to him that having described those, you don't want to go, what you want to emphasize from now on is how you want to be more supportive of him and how you want to contribute more to the unconditional love and happiness in your marriage. How you want to contribute more to the marriage as a partnership, as a team. And you don't want to go over anymore those old mistakes. See, what he's doing is being a victim. And victims can go over the old mistakes forever. Now, you have to completely admit your mistakes and all of this so that he really feels heard. And say, I did this, I did that wrong, I did all this wrong. You have to not be afraid of doing that. And then say to him, and that's the last time I'm going to go over that. And then you can say to him, now, you can go over it again if you want to, but I'm telling you ahead of time that I'm not going to participate in those discussions. And I'm just telling you that it will never make you happy. Then in the future, and I'm just telling you about discussions after this one, after you've told him about your mistakes. Then if he starts saying, well now, if only you don't let a victim go on and on and on, because every minute, every second that a victim goes on and on about what you've done, every second they go on, they're confirming in their mind that they're right. In their mind, they're just tallying up points. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. They are. You think they're not. They're counting up points and making themselves righter and you wronger. And they're just wallowing in it. So the minute that he starts saying, if only you need to raise your hand, literally raise your hand like this, and say, we've been over that. We've already discussed that. I know the mistakes I've made when I was there. You know the mistakes. We've gone over that. So we've got that down. You can go over that again, but we've already resolved that that's not going to make anybody any happier. So now you have a choice to make. You can keep going over that, in which case nobody will be happier. You'll just be wallowing in the same stuff. Or we can decide, what are we going to do now? What are we going to do that will put us further ahead financially? What are we going to do together that would contribute to us being more loving and supportive of each other so that we'll be happier emotionally and spiritually? Or we can make the first choice, which will just make everybody miserable. So it really comes down to, do we want to be miserable or do we want to be happy? Which choice do you want to make? And you need to stop him immediately so that he doesn't even get his engine going. Because with a victim, it's almost like you can see them backing up and getting warmed up so they get up to speed. Because once their engine gets revved up fast enough, you can't even get them back to planet Earth. They get revved up to a certain speed and they just keep going and going, and they keep hearing themselves talking and they begin to believe that it's true. So you stop them with the truth. Okay, we've heard that. It's not going to make us happy. That's the truth. Now, truth, and what choice are you going to make? You stop him. And we just aren't going to keep going over that stuff anymore. So you got to break this cycle in your marriage. And this isn't, you got to understand, this isn't to protect yourself. You've really got to get this point. You're not stopping him because of the attitude that many people would take. I'm not going to put up with this anymore. Wrong. If you're doing this so that you don't have to hear it, you have a completely erroneous attitude. If you're, well, I don't have to hear this crap anymore. Wrong. No, you're stopping it because as long as he sees himself as a victim, there can't be love in your relationship. Then he sees you as a monster, him as a victim, there's no love. No, the idea is, what can the two of you do to function as a loving partnership? And that's not possible as long as he acts like a victim. Next writer says, I was told not so long ago by someone in real love, which is sometimes dangerous, that I would not be able to love my partner properly until I had gotten him out of my head. I admit I didn't understand that when I read that. I think that means that he's not my every last thought and breath, because that's a kind of addiction. First of all, could someone expand on this for me so that I might understand better? So, I think I understand what you mean now. If we're in a relationship with somebody where we are obsessed with that person, where either we are obsessed with making them happy. Now, if you're obsessed with making somebody happy, that's codependence. For example, one definition of love that people sometimes put forth is, love is where I put somebody else's happiness before my own. Oh no, actually that has so many possibilities for abuse. That's actually sick. So if I'm obsessed, if all I can think about is, oh, what can I do to make my partner happy, to my own detriment, I'm going to end up being walked all over, and that's not going to end up being unconditional love. What that's going to end up being is me being a doormat and used, and that's going to be sick. If I'm obsessed with my partner as the sole source of my happiness, where all I do is think about my partner and how they can make me happy, that's also going to become sick. Because then, if my partner fails me in any way at any time, then my life is ruined. So you're right, I can become obsessed with my partner either way, either as the source of my happiness or as me being the source of theirs. So we want to be concerned about somebody's happiness, but not responsible for it. So if I'm unconditionally loving, I naturally want to care. If I'm unconditionally loving toward you, I care that you're happy, but I don't go the 6th step further and feel that I'm responsible for your happiness. No, you are responsible for that. You're responsible for making the choices that lead to finding unconditional love for yourself, being responsible, being loving yourself. That's what leads to your happiness. But certainly I can contribute to your happiness, and I would like to do that. That's having a concern for your happiness. And on the flip side of that, now that's being loving. If I count on my partner to be the sole source of happiness, it's going to end up being sick. But it's certainly reasonable to be in a partnership with somebody where I would hope that we could have a loving enough relationship where my partner could contribute to my happiness. That's okay. That could be a healthy relationship. Now, let's talk about the primary decision. This illustrates real love. So in the primary decision, my partner is the person whose happiness I care about most relative to other people. I put my partner's relationship first over my relationship with other people, but not to the exclusion of everything else. So, for example, what if my wife tells me that she wants me to support her while she's angry at someone else, and she wants me to tell her that she's right? What would I do? Now, as a codependent, I would tell her that she's right. And codependents do this. In fact, if you're in a relationship with a codependent, what you do is you demand their loyalty, and you demand that a codependent tell you that you're right all the time, and a codependent will. A codependent will say, oh yes, you're right all the time, and I will give you my loyalty no matter what. That's a sick relationship. If you're in a relationship with somebody who will always tell you that you're right and give you their loyalty no matter what, that's not a healthy relationship. Loyalty no matter what? Are you kidding me? Loyalty above the truth? That's insane. So, loyalty above true principles is craziness, because you can't have a relationship that is above true principles. In real love, if my wife said to me, I want you to tell me that I'm right when I'm angry, I would continue to love her. I would love her and support her and put my arm around her and not be angry at her, but I would still say, sweetie, I love you. I'm not the least bit irritated with you. I'm not impatient with you, but you're insane because you're angry. And when we're angry, we're never right. And Donna and I have teased each other on many occasions. For example, there was a time once when we were driving somewhere, and Donna said something to me like, it's just so wrong that something or other. And she wasn't being especially serious, but she was talking about somebody who had done something to wrong her. And I said, let's drive over to their house and kill them. And that's all she needed to hear. She knew I wasn't supporting her. She knew I was teasing her. And I've done the same thing with her. She doesn't support me when I'm irritated at somebody. In fact, she'll reach over and she'll pat me in a distinctly condescending way. It's a kind of a sweet thing, actually. She's not critical, but she reaches over and pats me if I'm not being loving and lets me know that I'm here to support you, but you're nuts. It's really very kind. But she also lets me know that I'm not being right. Next writer says, on Saturday, my boyfriend and I were making plans to go on holiday, which tells you that the writer is from either Canada or England, because in the United States we say go on vacation. Funny how you can cross the border and instantly the language changes. On Monday, he texted me with the message that he could not afford to go on holiday and that he has nothing to give me, physically, emotionally, or financially overall, which is nothing new for him, and I should find someone else. We've been together now for 6 years. What should I do? Well, if you've been together for 6 years, and as you say, it's nothing new for him, that he has nothing to offer physically, emotionally, or financially, then you have a decision to make, don't you? If you're having to carry somebody for 6 years, physically, emotionally, and financially, then you need to ask yourself, do you really want to be in a relationship with this person? It's a fairly common thing that I see two people in a relationship where one is being completely carried by the other. And the person who's the stronger of the two is carrying their partner because they feel like, well, gosh, if I left them, then what would happen to them? Who would take care of them? Well, get a dog. I'm not joking. And I'm not being unkind. It's nice of you to want to take care of somebody, but you see, there's a difference between loving somebody and having a partner. Do you see the difference? It's huge. And people say to me, well, but that's not very loving. No. See, if your partner were in the room, I would love him, but I wouldn't feel obligated to take him on as a partner. Loving somebody and accepting them unconditionally, that's one thing. But taking them on as a lifetime partner is an entirely different affair. Just because you accept him unconditionally does not obligate you to take him into your house, support him financially, support him emotionally as a child, which is what this sounds like, for the rest of his life, and, carry him. So you have to decide if you're willing to do that. Now, if he's growing steadily, and steadily taking responsible steps toward becoming a partner with you. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean an equal partner. Pretty much in every partnership, there's one person. In every partnership, people are relatively unequal in various things. I mean, my partner and I, Donna, we vary in our abilities to do lots of different things. She does some things better than I do some things better than she does. And what's the score? I don't know. She doesn't know. We don't care. But it's not like this. One of us isn't dragging the other one around or carrying the other one around on our back like a child. That's not a partnership. That's what you do with a child or a puppy. And you have to decide, is that something you've done it for 6 years? And this isn't a husband, it's a boyfriend. Is that something you want to do for the rest of your life? If you do, well, fine, but my question would be, why? Why would you continue to do that when you would have the opportunity to be in a relationship with somebody who could actually be a partner? It's not like, you're a rehabilitation center. And again, that is not unkind. You're not under contract from the government to rehab people. So you at some point need to make a decision whether it's your obligation to continue to do that. Next reader says, I have to decide between two choices, one of which appears to be the right thing to do, according to everyone around me, and the other is what many people would say is selfish. My friend, Mary, who has lived below me in this apartment house for more than 20 years, died 2 weeks ago. All of my neighbors in our apartment house and her son and daughter believe that I should attend her memorial service. But it's scheduled for the same afternoon that you are coming to Dallas, you meaning me. The problem here is that I wasn't as close to Mary as everybody thinks, and now I feel stuck. So, do I do what I want to do, which is go to the seminar in Dallas, or do I make a choice that would please Mary's son and daughter? They told me how important it is to them that I'm there. And if I miss the memorial, I'll have to deal with my neighbors, who just can't imagine that there could be anything more important than attend the memorial. I know that I have the right to make my own choice, but how can I choose to, quote, add to my own life, end quote, in exchange for this last opportunity to honor her life? And this guy has a real sense of humor. He signs it Fred. For those of you that don't get the joke, I call everybody Fred to hide their anonymity, so he did it for me. This is not a difficult question. Your relationship was with your friend, Mary, not with her son and her daughter. So here you are struggling to please her relatives, who pretty much rank as 0 in adding to the genuine happiness in your life. You just said that you'd like, and so pleasing them is like nowhere on the scale. And you just said that you'd like to honor her life. So how could you best honor a loving relationship with anybody? By passing on any love you felt with that person. So what could you do best? Learn how to better love other people. Learn more about real love. And you said you wanted to add to your own life. How? Again, learn more about real love. So this is not tough. And you've already said, without my guessing, you've already said what you want to do. So this just isn't complicated. Come to the seminar. Learn more about real love. Learn how to become happier yourself. But even more important at the seminar is that you come and feel the association with people who are determined to live real love, to love you. Much more important than just learning the principles. Now, if this lady's son and daughter are then offended, what are they telling you? They're simply proving that they really aren't interested in your happiness at all. And then what have you lost? Not a thing. Then you move on to people who do have an interest in your happiness. So there's a zero loss here. You just tell them what you're going to do. If they get mad, well, big deal. They really weren't a part of your life in the first place, and so you just move on. And it's not like you're telling them you don't care about them. They're telling you they don't care about you, and you're just simply accepting that fact. Do you see? You've made a decision to do what's important to you. And if they get mad, you're going, okay. You're not the one who's getting angry here. They are. And you have to see that. You're not choosing to be unloving. They are. So you're simply giving them the opportunity to either accept and love you or not. Now, what if this conflict was not with a friend's family, but with an actual friend? What if a friend were asking you to come to an event? Would that change anything? It really wouldn't. All this discussion about your friend's children is actually really just a distraction. The real point is that we can never be held hostage by what other people want. If we really want to be happy, our lives have to be filled with unconditional love, which is a love that is freely given and freely received. So if you feel forced to give to other people, you will never be happy. And the interesting thing is, let's say that you decided to go to the memorial because you felt obligated to. Would you really be making Mary's son and daughter happy or the neighbors happy? No. You'd only be giving them what they demand. You'd be giving them a brief satisfaction, a sense of power, which is different than happy. See, we say this all the time. We use this expression, okay, I'll do what you want if that will make you happy. How many times have you heard that expression? I'll do what you want if that will make you happy. We don't realize that that's not true. If somebody is manipulating you or demanding that you do what they want and then you do what they want, it doesn't make them happy. And so, why do it? If they're not happy when you do what they manipulate you to do, and you're not happy when they manipulate you to do what they want, let's see, that would be a score of 0 plus 0. That would be 0. Well, can nobody do the math here? Then why do it? You ought to at least go and do something that will contribute to your own happiness. Now at least we have a score of 1. This is pretty simple stuff. We have a live question here from a 10-year-old. This 10-year-old says, I am 10, which makes sense from a 10-year-old. It would be inappropriate if the 10-year-old said, or 15-year-old said, I'm 10. And the question is, should my parents show me respect? That's a tough question, actually. Respect. Well, see, it really depends on what you call respect. That's the tough thing. See, what your parents really need to be showing you is love, which means caring about your genuine happiness. And caring about your genuine happiness means unconditionally loving you, which would mean never being angry at you, not showing disappointment toward you. Not being angry is huge, which means teaching you how to be loving, teaching you how to be responsible. Now, when you say show you respect, that would involve things like, when I say being loving would involve things like, never being angry and not using unkind words towards you, and that would fall under the the word respect. Unfortunately, many 10-year-olds would tend to call respect giving you what you want, and that wouldn't be respect. So if by respectful you mean giving you everything you want, then I would say no. So it kind of depends on what you call respect. So if you can give me some examples of what disrespect is, then I can answer your question better. But if by the classic term of respect, meaning treat you formally with yes or no sir, well, no, they don't owe you that, but they certainly owe you respect in the sense of never treating you disrespectfully, like using unkind language. I was on the phone today with some parents, for example, and discovered that in the process of teaching their children, they sometimes called their children stupid or lazy, or became angry at them, or threw things across the room when they were teaching their children. That's obviously disrespectful, and no parent should ever treat their children with that kind of disrespect. So, yes, from that perspective, your parents should give you respect. If that doesn't answer your question, you need to ask me some more. Here's a woman who says, I'm trying to work on being unconditionally loving, and I want to give you a scenario. I came home from work after a long and tiring day, and my partner's cooking dinner. I make a cup of tea. She's doing this in the present tense. And I fancy, obviously from England, we don't talk like this in the States, but I love these words. For those of you who need a translation, fancy is the British way of saying I felt like or I wanted, but I love the word. I make a cup of tea, and I fancy just going to the lounge. Oh, another translation, the living room. I fancy going to the lounge and sitting down for a while. He says, stay and talk to me in the kitchen while he is cooking, so I stay. I didn't really want to. I was just tired and fancied a comfortable chair. I realize now that I probably stayed because he would have gotten offended if I did not stay and talk. Perhaps this explains the rest of the way I felt in our interactions. And you're probably right, because as soon as we do something we don't want to do, things usually start to go downhill. He asked me about my work. I didn't feel like talking about it. Neither did I really want to talk about his. I often get the feeling that I would like to talk about deeper things. Now listen to me carefully. When we don't do what we want in relationships, it's almost invariable that we are selling our souls. We're lying. We're doing something for our partner to win their approval, and that's the beginning of the end. We're being dishonest. Because as soon as we're doing that, what we get isn't unconditional love. We're not giving unconditional love because we're doing something we don't really want to do. Then what we get doesn't feel unconditional love. Do you see how we're dead? We start with a lie, and so everything goes downhill. We have to be honest. What we give has to be freely given, or we just doom it from the beginning. So you have to do what you want to do. You have to be honest. Then you observe what your partner does in response, because that's what they truly want to do. As opposed to, let's see, I'll lie, he lies, I'll lie back, he lies back, I'll lie, he lies, Are you kidding me? Now, how do you know what you have? It's just one complicated layer of lies upon another, and then in the end, we wonder why our relationship broke up. Do you see? It's horrifying. And if you consistently do what you want to do, and your partner hates what you want to do, then you're with the wrong darn partner. Do you see? Better to find that out than to tell lies all along and figure it out later on. Way better to tell the truth. Then you continue. What I really wanted to talk about was how much I'm trying to consider real love principles when I'm teaching. So, you're obviously a teacher. I had a parents' evening tonight, and I tried to talk to a parent who was having trouble with their kid using the real love principles. In other words, you were trying to explain using the real love principles, not the parent was having trouble using the real love principles. I was suggesting to the parent that they consider giving their child consequences rather than yelling and getting angry with the child. Well, how sweet of you to try to apply real love with the parent. And a very reasonable topic of conversation. As opposed to just talking about shopping and football, you're going to actually talk about something that matters in life with your boyfriend. What a novel concept. Whoa. I mean, imagine talking about real life. So, what do? Just start talking about that with your boyfriend instead of sitting there going, oh, wow, I wonder if I'm entitled to talk about something that really matters. Do you see how crazy this is? Here you want to talk about something that really matters, and yet you bite your tongue, and you didn't do it. Something's wrong with this picture. And so you just do it. And if he doesn't like talking about that topic once, okay, maybe he's just not in the mood. It's not like we have a right to insist that our partners talk about something we like to talk about. Maybe he just doesn't feel like it that time. Great. But if you want to talk about something that really matters to you, and he consistently doesn't want to talk about that subject, well then, why would you want to be in a relationship with that person? Do you see? So figure that out and start talking. Then you continue. So this is what I wanted to talk to Fred, I'm substituting the name, my partner about. How good it felt to be able to help someone. Too often parents have come to me on Parents' Evening, almost always asking me for help, and I haven't felt that I could give them any. And how I could really see how this father was digging himself a hole by getting angry and controlling with his daughter. See, this is wonderful that you're willing to help a parent by talking about unconditional love. I realize now that I wish I had mentioned the Real Love book. Perhaps when I'm stronger and less afraid, I'll start to do that. But I didn't feel like I wanted to, or more honestly, I guess I was scared to make any suggestion that might look like I was telling this father what to do when I'd never met the guy before. See, very honest of you. Because, 95% of the time, the parents won't mind if you mention the book. The parents are clueless. They have no idea how to raise their children. And the book to mention to them is probably Real Love and Parenting. And you can say it very casually. You can say, I've read this book that has helped me understand some principles and helped me work with the children. So they might help you as well. See, you tell the truth about you, and when you do it in that way, rather than saying, you need to read this book, it won't threaten them, and it won't frighten them. It's very effective. Anyway, you continue. I didn't talk to Fred about this. Somehow I realized that I don't share these deeper things. I censor myself because and at least I'm observing this now and becoming more aware, but I need more real love to diminish my fear. I'm not so sure you need more real love. Well, we all do, but not more real love to bring this up. You need more just simply awareness. You have nothing to lose here, sweetie. If you share the deeper things here with him, what could happen? You'll just find out, the worst that could happen is that you would find out that this man can't accept you for who you really are. Now, if you share these things with him, would that cause him to not accept you for who you really are? No, because he already wouldn't be. You're just going to learn about it. See, he's either right now accepting you or not. He's either capable of unconditionally loving you or he ain't, honey. And if you tell the truth about yourself, you're simply going to learn about it. That's all. And so if you're not telling him the truth, you're simply perpetuating the lie that he is accepting you. See, it's just a lie. So let's at least find out the truth. Do you see? Would you rather learn about it now or in a year? Come on, let's get rid of the mystery. So if you do learn that he's not capable of unconditionally loving you, have you really lost anything? No, sweetie. You've actually freed yourself so that you can move on to somebody who can now accept you. Well, yippee! Break out the balloons and the bubbly. This is great news. So the faster you tell him who you really are, the sooner you can either A, develop a loving relationship with him, or B, get it over with him and move on to somebody who can. Honey, I fail to see the downside of this. You either get a good one with him or a good one with somebody else. You can't lose. But if you don't tell him the truth, what you've got is something that's just kind of crummy with him. That's no good. You continue. In my family, when I was growing up, we could switch quite quickly from talking about something trivial to something deep in a short time. Fred asked me a couple of things, like did I want to go to a music festival, and talking to me about his guitar playing, and I had the sense that I often get that I'm being talked at rather than to. Why do I get this feeling? You've already answered your question. You get that feeling because you are being talked at. You're not stupid, sweetie. You've proven that in the way you ask your questions. You already knew the answer. If you feel like you can't talk about what you want to, and you feel like you're censoring yourself all the time, guess why? It's because you already sense that he's not going to listen to you. So you need to find out whether this is true, and you can only learn that by actually talking about what you want to talk about. So get this over with there, darling. Start talking about what you really want to talk about today. You hinted earlier that you need to feel more loved before you can start talking about yourself. I wouldn't wait for that. Start talking about yourself right now. And he can either love you or he can't. And if he can't, goodbye. So do that. Don't wait another minute. Let's see here. Oh, here we are. Here we are. My wife criticizes the way I drive constantly. It makes me crazy. What do I do about it? Well, you first need to be honest about the way you drive. Is it safe? You really need to look at this. Because if you're not driving safely, then you need to repent. Really, you do. If you're driving too fast, shape it up, buddy. I don't know whether you need to get a third opinion and have somebody else in the car with you or what. But you need to step back from yourself, no kidding, and you need to look at, am I lurching? Am I driving around curves too fast? Do I swerve in traffic too much? Do I whatever? Because, and you need to look at it. Every time your wife makes a comment about your driving, for example, before you say a thing, if you need to take a notepad with you, do this. When she says, you are blank, you need to, probably you shouldn't take notes while you're driving. That'd probably make you even worse. But you need to look at what you're doing. Is what she's saying at the time true? You're driving too fast. You need to look down at the speedometer before you go to open your mouth and immediately defend yourself. Are you? When she says you're swerving, are you doing those things? Or is she just a nut job controller? Because some people are. No kidding. If you're because I've seen it both ways. I'm not making an assumption that you are one way or the other. Some people are unsafe, and if you are, you need to quit it right this minute, because nobody should ever be put in the position of being a passenger with a freak driver and feel like that their life is in peril. Really, that's a terrible position to be in. On the other hand, I have seen countless passengers who just simply can't shut their mouths. And no matter how the driver drives, they make comments. And I've been in the car with them. The driver's just driving along normally. And the passenger's going, change lanes, do this, drive slower, drive faster. And I've been in the car, and the driver's driving fine. Frankly, when we first got married, I did some of that. Don would be driving along, and I'd say, why don't you change lanes? Because there were, whatever, fewer drivers in the other lane, or whatever. And after doing that several times, I realized that, when you're talking to an adult human being and you say, why don't you? Pretty much the answer to that question is, because they don't want to. And it's none of my business. And if I want to modify the way she drives, and this is the answer I'm giving to you, if you want to modify the way somebody drives, you got three choices. It's the same three choices to pretty much everything. You can live with it and like it. You can live with it and hate it with your mouth shut. Or you can leave it at 60 miles an hour or stopped. And I would explain that to her. If it's true that you really aren't driving unsafely, then I would sit down with her at a time when you're not having a crisis, and I would say, look, I've examined my driving, and unless you can, and ask her opinion. Say, I've gone over these various times that you said that I'm doing too fast, and I haven't been. I've not been going over the speed limit. I have not had an accident in 20 years. I've not gotten a ticket. And so it's not about safety. So here's the deal. You got three choices. You can sit over there as a passenger, and you can enjoy the fact that you get to be a passenger and you get to be chauffeured about here and there. That's choice number one. Choice number two. You can sit over there as a passenger and you can hate it, but you get to make no comments. None. Not fewer comments. You get to make zero. Or choice number three. You cannot be a passenger. And there are a number of different ways to not be a passenger. And you can choose from any one of them. For example, if we're driving, before we drive, you can get a cab. You can ride the bus. You can walk. You can drive, and I'll be the passenger. We can be halfway there, and you can hate the way I drive, and you can get out. Or we can switch, and you can drive. Any number of possibilities. Or you can suggest one to me. I'm not trying to control you in any way. I'm really not. I'm not even telling you to shut up. But I'm saying I won't hear those comments anymore. And so in order to not hear them, those are our possibilities. You drive, you go in a separate car, whatever it is, but I won't hear the comments. So you don't have to shut up, but you would have to make them in somebody else's car or on the curb or, whatever. So those are the three choices, and what would you like to do? And then if she makes one of those choices, for example, she decides to be a passenger but not make comments, and then while you're driving somewhere, she decides to make a comment. Then what you do is, you don't say, you don't say, now please don't, You pull the car into a parking lot, and you get out, just calm as can be, sweet, gentle, not angry. You get out, you just go over to her side and open the door, and you say, you may now drive. Because you've already had this discussion. You say it's your turn to drive. Because you've already gone over the options. You pull into a parking lot and it's done. Because you've already done the talking. Now we're to action. There's no sense talking anymore, and you don't act like a victim. And I'm telling you, I've done this with many couples, this identical question. And if you'll simply present those three possibilities, and then you act on it after that, it brings the whining to a complete stop. So, always remember, as we go over these questions and as we talk about, consequences and things to say and to do, that in all of them, we always have to respond in a loving way. And that it's always important that we acquire a loving attitude, that we tell the truth about ourselves first, and that we become loving before we attempt to apply anything that resembles even remotely a technique. So between now and next Tuesday, when we'll get back together, remember that it's always about real love. We'll see you next week.